So first and foremost, I think one of the biggest things that you have to do is understand what a personal definition to success is, because whoever you are, every what they're looking for in life, success is going to be completely different from one person to the next.
Sure.
So for you personally, what is your definition to success?
Yeah, success for me is probably continuously making progress. It's inertia, it's momentum, it's a path forward. And when I think about what defines success in my life right now, it really is just about how I feel about the way that I am. Accomplishing the things that are important to me. What are my priorities? How am I spending my time? And am I making progress towards those goals?
Yeah. I know you and I had kind of a more personal conversation, not to go too far into it, but with someone that was in your sphere of influence, right? And they were talking about they have already established what any person in the world would consider to be success, but there's things that they weren't fulfilling in their life that would might seem minute to most people, but it had a dramatic impact on them. And like I said, it's very valuable to identify what that personal success is to you. Um, I think one of the biggest things that can help catapult you towards success is your circle of influence
Sure.
and the relationships that you
Yeah.
had. So, what would you say about, because you've gone through all sort different walks of life, right? Just
Yep.
like I have too. And I know that you said that you're creating new friends groups and like doing some networking groups outside with like, guys that are also entrepreneur seekers
Sure.
and so forth. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah, so when I think about a circle of influence, you are who you surround yourself by, and I've been fortunate to have a lot of people in my life that I've been in relationship with for a long time, but I'm currently on a journey of changing that sphere of influence.
Hmm.
So I quit drinking probably about 18 months ago, and that had a pretty profound impact on my lifestyle. And I kind of woke up and realized that I don't have as many male friends as I want. I don't have as many friends that are as ambitious as I am professionally, and I don't have as many friends that enjoy doing some of the things that I enjoy doing. And so I've been on a journey of intentionally really trying to find new relationships that not only can I benefit from, but that connect with my family, right? And
Yeah.
that spouses that get along and kids that get along and people that we just want to spend time with. Because frankly, time is our most precious commodity, and it's the one thing that I just don't have enough of, and so I have to use it really, really wisely.
Yeah. So one thing that you said that's very interesting, and I have recently pretty much cut off drinking since prior to coming into Christmas, like right before that. I worked at a nightclub forever, right? Drinking's always been very prevalent in my life. I've also been super focused on fitness and stuff, so it wasn't ever overtaking my life, to what you would consider to be an alcoholic or something like that. But what I've come to find out is Tampa's a party town, right? And there's a lot of networking, which requires a lot of drinking, and it's kind of like a tumbleweed effect
Sure.
that you don't even realize starts to happen. So being here for 3 months now, I'm like, listen, I need to get back to what I'm used to being, which is in the gym.
Yep.
And the drinking had a severe negative effect. And what I found, or what I asked myself, is what positive do I get from drinking? Sure, it makes me more fun socially, but does it bring me more business? No. Actually, if I'm hungover, it makes me very unproductive for the next 2 to 3 days.
Sure.
I've also noticed just within the short time that I start waking up at 5:30 in the morning without even an alarm clock.
It's amazing.
And I'm still trying to do it, but I'm trying to transition to a morning person and do like the whole fasted cardio thing, which is going to be a whole nother, achievement in itself.
Yeah.
Because when I do it, I'm like, well, shoot, I've already got my whole workout done. I don't know what to do with the rest of my day, like when I come home from work. So now I got time to hang out with my dog and do other stuff. But it's crazy just what cutting out drinking will do. And, not only that, but all the health effects too,
Sure.
like better
Sure.
skin,
Sure.
relationships, so forth. Um, so,
So for me, drinking was it dulled my experience to be present in life, and it was just a habit and a crutch that I'd fallen into for so many years as a coping mechanism for stress. But the problem was that when I started thinking about like, okay, what am I excited about, right? I'm going to see friends, or I'm going to an event, or I'm going to do something. What am I excited about? And unfortunately, one of the things that I was really excited about was having a cocktail.
Yeah.
And the reason I was excited about it was because I knew that, I didn't understand at the time, but I knew that I was going to feel good for a short period of time because I was going to get a dopamine hit, right? But then the effects of that, right, after that short-term dopamine hit were, well, okay, now I got to chase it and have another one, and then that benefit's even shorter, and then the next one even shorter and even shorter, and eventually to the point, right, where you just become inebriated, and so what I found by stopping drinking, at least for me, is I reconnected with the things in life that matter to me: my family, my relationships, my kids. I was able to be present in those experiences and find meaning and value and fulfillment in them that just had nothing to do with the mask that was liquor.
Yeah. So are you an introverted or an extrovert?
I'm a Gemini, so I'm probably a little bit of both, right? I kind of think I have both sides of like most coins. So I think that I enjoy aspects of being both, but it was a social lubrication. Don't get me wrong, right? But frankly, I'm smarter, I'm faster, I'm wittier, I'm more present, I can connect with people. So I think that I actually am a better extrovert not drinking compared to what I thought I was drinking, which was my own, hollow perception.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. So yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Like I said, it definitely feels weird going somewhere, like even on Christmas, everybody's like, "You want a glass of wine?" And I'm like, "No." And it feels super awkward to turn something down that seems so natural.
Sure. Well, our progression, my wife was actually a big catalyst in this too. She's the emotionally intelligent one in the family, right? And so everything good in my life has basically started with her as a catalyst in some form or fashion. But she agreed to quit drinking as well. I needed to. She wanted to, right? So we had different motivations behind it. But she joined me in this journey. And when we first stopped, same thing, right? I was like, what do I do? I need a cocktail. I need to do something with my hands. I want to sip on something. And so we got super into sparkling waters. I mean, we bought every kind of sparkling water you can imagine. We mixed it with cocktail mixers. We mixed it with like lemons and limes and all the other stuff. And then I realized I'm just drinking gallons and gallons of sparkling water every day. But it was a crutch. It was a transition, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually we kind of phased off of that. And it's like everything else in life. You have to have a little bit of willpower and a little bit of mental fortitude to kind of get yourself over the hump, whatever it is. And then once you get over that hump, all of a sudden it starts to become habitual. It starts to become routine. Your brain starts to automate the fact that this is just how you operate, and you no longer feel the same level of dependency. But I still oftentimes, even though it's been a year and a half, there's many times that I think about a situation, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a cocktail, and then I'm like, wait, I don't drink anymore.
Yeah.
But I think part of it too is I've shifted my identity from not being somebody that struggles with alcohol to now I'm just a non-drinker. And so in my self-talk, in my narrative in my head, my identity's changed.
Yeah. That's great. So I'm excited to see where that path goes. And speaking of self-talk, I know that one of the things that you kind of preach is towards being successful is, saying affirmations, or maybe it's not affirmations, but speaking positively to yourself every single day. I know that you posted something up on a mirror in the bathroom for
Here at the office, yeah.
for the office, for the entire floor. So it's not even just our company; it's for everybody in there. And they're probably like, "What is this?" And then also the book that I started reading. I think, what is it? The Little Things.
Tiny Habits.
Tiny Habits. He said the first thing you do when you plant your feet on the floor is to say, "Today is going to be great," right? Or if that's not your mojo, say today is going to be awesome. But start the day off, even if it's going to be terrible, by saying today is going to be great. So that way it starts to flip a switch in your head that triggers an expectation that today will be great.
Yeah.
So what is your personal experience with, saying these types of affirmations? Because eventually, if you say it, repetitiously enough, I think that it does trigger some sort of switch in your head to start thinking, hey, it's not going to, just because you want to believe something, I don't think that it will happen, but you have to be persistent with it, and you have to say it out loud, and then I think that it does trigger something in your head, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The first step in any goal setting or any type of, movement forward is to say it out loud. It's to write it. It's to commit to it mentally in some way, right? And so I believe that there's kind of our conscious mind and there's our subconscious mind. And the conscious mind, to some extent, is the things that we're trying to manifest into reality that we want to become. But the subconscious mind is actually the part of us that is making it happen, right? So it's kind of like I tell my mind or I tell my identity, I want to be this, but then my subconscious mind finds ways to actually make that happen. And so I believe that self-talk and mindset are just absolutely critically important. I mean, the reality is, there's all kinds of neuroscience and studies out there that show the effect that we can have on ourselves and have on others through mindset. But for me, I think part of it is I think I have a natural disposition to be glass half full, kind of, to some extent. But at the end of the day, I've just always been somewhat grateful. And even when I didn't understand the power of gratitude the way that I do now and some of what I've learned about it, I've always thought, you know what, I woke up today, with all the things that typically people are striving for in society, right? Healthy kids and financial stability, all these other things. And so that doesn't have to happen. I could have been born or I could wake up in a totally different situation. And so I'm just eternally grateful for the life that I've been presented and the opportunities I've been presented. So whatever adversity I face or whatever challenges I face, man, I can find gratitude no matter what.
Yep.
I mean, there are people in this world that have no control over their experience. And so no matter how bad my day is, man, it's still a great day. Both feet hit the ground, and you know what? If I have a tough day, life goes on. I shake it off. I wake up tomorrow and I start the day with a fresh attitude.
So one of the biggest things that I've recently noticed is that there are three major enemies to success for any individual, and it's a comfort zone.
Sure.
Getting outside that comfort zone, learn helplessness, where you look at something and automatically think you can't do it, and finding the path of least resistance. Have you had any experience with this? I mean, I know that I personally am on my own journey for going outside my comfort zone. I wouldn't say that I've ever really learned helplessness, because I pretty much think that I can achieve anything that I do, but I've also strived to go with the path to not go with the path of least resistance.
Sure.
So, do you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just human nature to fall back into our comfort zone and things that come easy. But that's where I believe we have the least amount of growth. And so I was listening to I'm a podcast guy, right? And I was listening to Andrew Huberman, and he was doing a podcast with David Goggins. Everybody knows David Goggins, the Navy SEAL, and they were talking about David Goggins, his will to succeed, his will to survive, right? He just has this like unlimited mental fortitude that it doesn't really matter what the adversity is, he's going to overcome it. And so they were talking about the fact that there's this part of the brain, I think it's called the anterior cingulate cortex is the name of it, but it's a part of the brain that basically is elastic, and it can grow or shrink. And what grows it is a human doing something they don't want to do. So it's pretty simple, right? If you're uncomfortable, this particular part of your brain is growing. And if this particular part of your brain is growing, it's flooding your system with dopamine and catecholamines and all the other beneficial chemicals that we're all striving for, that make us feel good, that make us feel fulfilled, that make us feel, a sense of achievement. And so I just have this kind of conscious awareness all the time that if I'm afraid of something or if I don't want to do something, I need to do it, right? It's almost to the point where I try to find situations to make myself uncomfortable. My wife, again, who's, our brilliant leader of the household, she has this saying written on this board in our bedroom, and I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt's, it's a quote. And the quote is, do something that scares you every day, right? And so I can't tell you the number of times every day that I have anxiety about doing something, or I'm scared about doing something, or I'm uncertain about doing something, and then I just force my hand, and guess what? Good things almost always happen. It's amazing how much good things come from getting outside your comfort zone, and all kinds of opportunities expand. And frankly, the way that we live our lives, it's just our perception of the world is all that really matters. So man, if I'm happy and if I'm feeling good and if I'm firing all cylinders, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks, because this is my life. And again, when I talked about like those definitions of success, it's all about how I feel.
Yeah.
My goals are how I feel.
So what do you because your kids are coming to an age, right, where I think you start to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah,
with
we already
them.
are.
So what do you tell them in relation to, and I know like back in the day, it's like you can be whatever you want, but what do you kind of tell your kids these days towards working towards something that they want to do long term? I mean, is that even a conversation yet for what they want to be when they grow up, or is it just like I want you to try everything? And then, you as a parent kind of figure out what they're, if it, for sports example, do they like to play soccer, baseball, and so forth,
Sure.
and then kind of let them go down that path? Or do you push something on them like academics, or like when I was growing up, my parents forced me to play the saxophone. I wanted to play the drums, but they wanted me to play the saxophone. So I played it and I hated it, but I'm just curious what your parental style is with that.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's a big topic. There's a lot of facets we could go down that road. But I guess first and foremost, I read somewhere that something like 97% or somewhere in the high 90s% of your personality is genetic predisposition. So the reality is we have legacies, right? Generations of DNA embedded in us, and we are who we are. And so until the last generation or two, parents really were like kind of hands off, right? They were kind of like, hey, I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you fed. I'm going to keep you alive. But other than that, you're kind of like on your own. And it wasn't until the last couple of generations where we've really gotten into this like helicopter parenting, and everybody's got to be perfect. And we got to, start prepping kids for the right university when they're still in preschool and whatever. And it's just created so much undue stress on ourselves and on our kids. And we're creating neurotic behavior in future generations. So again, attributed to my wife, we really try to raise the kids in a way that isn't about us and it's about them. And so whatever their passions are, whatever their interests are, whatever they want to do, we kind of just try to give them free rein, right? When they're fighting, we try not to get in the middle, right? They need to learn how to have conflict amongst themselves and solve it for themselves. And so like if you ask my son right now, right, what do you want to be when you grow up? He'd probably say a baseball player. If you ask my daughter, who knows, maybe like a unicorn trainer, right? She's a little more out there, so she bounces around on what she wants to do. For me,
Unicorn trainer.
I
that just went over my head. I was thinking horses, and I was like, oh, unicorn.
Yeah. I mean, a horse is cool, but a unicorn is better.
Yeah.
And so, but it's not, I think the question that we talk to them about isn't what do you want to be? It's fun to have the aspirational, ideological conversations about who they might want to be. But what we really talk about is how do you want to feel? Mm-hmm. And so, frankly, we're all such emotional creatures, but we mask a lot of it with logic and rationalization. But that's just logic and rationalization to accomplish whatever the emotional objective really is, right?
Yeah.
And so, for me, the number one thing is if there's anything that they learn from us as parents, it's how to have a healthy lifestyle. And not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually and mentally, and then probably most important is just how to have healthy relationships. And if they can have healthy relationships with themselves, with others, and with close, like spouses and things of that nature, they're going to have a great life.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what they do.
Yep. So because the reason why I asked this at the forefront is I'm curious of the dynamic of what you do with your children, because you also, for Embrace, are the head for the Southeast region of our hiring, and you've just brought on a few really big teams, right? So what is it that you look for from these specific individuals when you do the interview process and bring them on? Because right now there's a million LOs, right, that you can that are looking at other opportunities for a company such as Embrace that's, thinking outside the box and investing back into their employees and stuff like that, where a lot of companies are just kind of putting their hands up saying, we're gonna pull back on things and cut. So what are the qualities or things that you identify in a person that you strive to see their success or what they're going to be? Is it characteristics such as, I think with me, you like that I was so disciplined with my working out and stuff like that, but what is your primary characteristics that you look for as the point of person for hiring a new employee?
Yeah. So with you, by the way, I appreciate the fact that you're into fitness because it shows a certain level of discipline. But what I really liked about you was your communication skills. It was your articulation. It was your ability to think and speak quickly, but in a succinct way. That's what really attracted me to you. And we're in sales, right? So communications is like a huge part of that.
Sure.
But as it relates to everybody else, man, I do not have all the answers. I'm not some sort of a recruiting guru by any means. But the only thing that I try to think about is how can I be empathetic to the person that I'm talking to and be present in the moment? Because a lot of us have this tendency, myself included, especially people that are ambitious a lot of times, I think. They think faster than they speak, and they're thinking ahead in the conversation, and they're not being in the moment with the person, right? Yeah. And so that feels disingenuous to the people. So for me, I'm just kind of always telling myself, be present, be present, be present,
yeah.
right? Be committed to the person at hand, and connect with them emotionally to understand their motivations and their behaviors and their drivers. Because everybody in the industry talks about all the technical and tactical and ins and outs of mortgage, this, that, and the other. But what I want to do is try to connect as a human being.
I think that works in personal relationships too.
It does, yeah.
Like I was talking, whatever, but and the person's like, "Did you even hear what I said?" I was like, "No."
Right. Yeah, it happens all the time, and I'm notorious for
Yeah.
it. And a lot of that came, from insecurities that I had,
Sure.
right, and anxieties. And so I'm trying to be further ahead in the conversation because I want to play chess when they're playing checkers, kind of thing. And then I've come to realize, man, that just gets you even further away from connecting.
Yeah, you're looking for the rebuttal before the question's even prompted.
Right. So if you just have some natural confidence, slow down a little bit and really connect with the person. But so to answer your question directly, when it comes to recruiting, I try to connect emotionally with people. I try to be empathetic and understand where they're coming from and their perspective. And then what I look for in them is really a couple things. First off is drive. Man, if you don't have drive, if you don't have motivation, if you're not a self-starter, it's almost impossible for you to make it in any kind of sales role, right? Mm-hmm. So that's first and foremost is somebody that's driven. Number two would be somebody that conducts themselves with character and integrity and values. And then number three would be probably somebody that has a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. Somebody that is like, hey, I'm okay where I'm at, but I want more.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to get uncomfortable and vulnerable to get there.
Sure.
And if you bring those three qualities to the table, like there's nothing you can't do.
Yeah. I feel like anybody in sales should have that last, there's never enough kind of mindset, because if that was the case, then you should just go in something where you get a W-2'd salaried paycheck, and then that's the end of it, right?
Fear is a stronger motivation for most people, though, than the things that come with success. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, a lot of people struggle to get out of their own way. And even if they want to be growth oriented, they sometimes don't have the tools or resources to actually bring that out in themselves.
Yeah, that's interesting. So the last thing that I really want to just touch on is like setting goals, and like, I think when most people set goals, they set it for like a macro stance, like, sure, right? Like this year I want to do 50 million in sales, but what really matters is every little goal that happens on a daily or a weekly basis to get to that annual giant goal, right? So what I know that we're doing like a growth plan here internally in our company, right? Like what is the primary focus as a company that we do? Because we broke it down into different categories as well as a weekly and monthly basis, right? And then you have an accountability partner that keeps you online for achieving those little milestones.
Yep. Yeah. So, I think what you just described is like you can just Google, right, goal setting, or you can Google like whatever, and it's going to tell you all those things, right? Take your goal and break it down and make it digestible and all that other stuff. For me, it really just boils down to is it something that I can do that can become a habit? Is it something that I can do that goes on to autopilot, where once I've done it for a little bit, it just becomes like part of my regular routine, right? Mm-hmm. And again, I go back to like time is my most precious commodity. So if I have to take a ton of time preparing for something or building up the enthusiasm for something or overcoming a fear to do something, the likelihood of me doing it's not going to happen very much. So I just try to take something that is process oriented, right? That's going to lead to the result, but I'm not that focused on the result. I'm focused on the process and what can I do today, right? So even take us sitting here having this conversation, right? The reason we're sitting here having this conversation is because we have a videographer on staff, and we have a videographer that's willing to shoot this content, help us edit this content, do all the lighting. And so what that did is it brought down the barrier of entry for us, and it gave us the ability to sit here and have this conversation without us having to do everything else, right? So we made it a little bit easier for ourselves.
Yeah.
So the key for me is make it small and digestible, and then make it easy enough that it's something you're going to do. And once you do it repetitiously, you'll just continue doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I think there's a lot to take away from that, especially going into 2024. I mean, success is on everybody's forefront of what they want to do this year. And I think the biggest thing is to identify what makes you happy in life, right? And to identify what that success is. It could be monetary, it could be family, it could be religion, it could be whatever it is. But I think everybody, like we said up front, is very different. So understanding that is the best way to achieve a happy life and have a good year.
Yeah, and I agree. And listen, our industry is chock full of type A driven, successful people. But I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, man. Like, living the lives that we live in society today, especially in the mortgage industry, it's tough, right? It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress. The market's been difficult. Interest rates have been high. Inventory's been low. There's a million reasons for people to have, excuses. And I think it's different. There's a difference between having grace for yourself and then having an excuse, right? So you can be give yourself a little bit of breathing room, give yourself a little bit of grace while simultaneously saying, hey, I'm going to buckle down and go do these things. And the only thing that I would think about is you are who you surround yourself with, man. So if you want to rise to new levels, find people that are already there and bring them into your circle. And next thing you know, you're going to emulate them and then you can go here and then they can go there. And next thing you know, it's just a compound effect.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my biggest things for I'm new to Tampa. I've been here for 3 months. So my biggest thing is find a friend group and make sure it's a good friend group, right? And if I cut drinking out and it's not my drinking buddies, then they got to be great. So the only way you're going is up if you got friends that aren't drinking friends. So
pickleball friends are fun.
Pickleball friends,
right.
Yeah. But Jason, I appreciate you coming out today, and here's to a good 2024, all right?
You got it, brother.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.